All right, welcome everybody to another edition of Personal FlashPaper, the RPG. This is episode 11. I am your host, Randy Glenn. With me, as always, Max.
Hey, Randy. Hello, everybody.
Before we get started today, I want to give a brief shout out to our sponsors, Tabletop Games and Hobbies in Overland Park, Kansas. Definitely check out their online store in our show notes. For Cyber Monday, they are doing free shipping of all their orders. And if you're in town, get that cool curbside pickup. Tabletop Games and Hobby in Overland Park, Kansas. Now, on to the episode that the most requested episode that we've had is Aleph. It is time to talk Aleph, Max.
I'm ready for it. As we've told Rob, we got multiple hours of Greeks coming at you.
We
So,
have all the Greek. This is going to be. We were just talking about this briefly, but this could be about a month and a half of podcast coming up just on Aleph. But this episode,
yeah, this particular book is I would say maybe one of the more dense of the faction books too. So,
it really is.
definitely a lot for us to dive into here.
Yeah, and this episode is going to be why you may want to actually get this book, and you're going to be surprised if you've never seen the PDF or the book. You're going to be surprised that Max and I don't necessarily want this book because of the Aleph character creation. It's everything else in this thing. So let's not waste any time, Max. Let's dive into this thing. And what is this book? Kind of how it breaks down. And there are 9 chapters and an introduction in this bad boy.
Yeah, it's big. What? How many? It's 116
I mean, yeah,
pages.
roughly.
Including like that's like individual page count, but that's pretty large. And off the top of my head, I don't know what the other faction ones are. I should have looked, but I mean, that's about a fifth of the core book when you think about it. It's this is a big one, and like you said, I want it for more than just Aleph stuff. There's some sections in here that are applicable for campaigns above and beyond just Aleph stuff. Like if you are playing a Nomad character, you're going to want to get this for chapter 2 probably, because Lord knows you're going to be hacking.
Yeah, I mean, so to break this puppy down, I'm not going to read the introduction, everybody, but chapter 1 is the fluff of Aleph, and it's what 20 pages, almost like 19 pages of Aleph, but it also kind of dives into their view on the other factions and the other factions kind of messing with them. And there's some cool little stories about nomads in there. And we are going to deep dive the fluff because this is kind of a cool. The way they describe the fluff is almost like an awakening. And the second you have that awakening, there's instant splits of things, and it's very cool to read. And a lot of people, it's hard to get Aleph fluff out there in for the tabletop game, but here is some really good what it is.
Yeah, from the reasons why AIs were worked on all the way up to present day, really. An Aleph's evolving form and abilities through then. Really cool stuff. I like several of the sidebars in this section. I think are really neat. They add a lot of flavor as well. Like one that is like a little blurb that's kind of a Aleph aspect addressing an O12 task force and how it presents itself. And then, we talk about Aleph policing rogue AIs and various things and how it looks for stuff. And it doesn't always paint Aleph as necessarily the good guy, you
No,
know. Aleph's reading emails and looking for troubles. So, um, it does some things people may not like. Maybe the nomads have a point. They don't, but
they don't.
they
Nomads
might.
never
They
have a
might.
point. And if you're all are wondering right now, Max and I both play Aleph, so we have a bias to Aleph being the
It's
good guys.
like
We're the good guys.
the
So
reason I got into the tabletop game.
isn't
So
Yeah, so you're not going to get to a biased. I'm sorry, this is not going to be a non-biased thing of Aleph. We are both Aleph players, and unfortunately for you guys, we tend to take the same path here. We both enjoy Aleph as well. So once you get past the fluff of Aleph, and it's God, it's so good. You almost just want to stop the whole episode and just go, let's talk about it. But we're not going to do that. We're going to talk about chapter 2, and this is where this book is epic. One of the reasons, because this gets into advanced InfoWar, and if you were to pull up the PDF of Nomads, and if you pull up the PDF of this or the books, the hard copies, you're going to see that in the Nomad book, there's not a lot of extra hacking stuff in there. They have other stuff, but you almost wish that some of this was in the Nomad book.
Yeah, and you almost feel like it ought to be,
Hmm.
or even like in the core book, like there's a pretty extensive section on comm logs and comm log implants and what actions you can do with a comm log, plus hacking a comm log, what can it get you, and information augmented reality. I mean, how many careers come with like like AR lenses for the career and stuff? So it almost feels like some material that is really, I think, necessary, but also at the same time, as big as that core book is, I think a lot of stuff had to be chopped and split out. Like it almost didn't even have the section on vehicles and piloting vehicles and combat and stuff vehicle combat, just because it was bursting at the seams. So putting it somewhere else makes sense. Having read through the Nomad book, they spend a lot of time. There's a lot of Nomad fluff, and they spend a big chunk of page count on social energy, which is pretty cool, dynamic, and thing to explore for Nomad. So, this is maybe the next most logical place for this stuff.
Yeah, I think it might be, but there is a lot of programs in here, and some of it isn't even that really a big of a deal. It's more of kind of for fun, and even like how do you run your Geist. I mean, there's like a page almost of how to block people from talking to you, how to get
Yeah.
into that, like and what the difficulty level
Or
should
yeah,
be.
like a whole page on clouds and Halo, and like your own
Yep.
personal social cloud and Halo, and how they interact at varying degrees of permission when you just come across somebody, because you and I walk up to each other on the street, like I already know you, I probably have a higher level of permission, but then so I'm like, I'm saying, oh, Randy was just playing this game last night and he watched Mandalorian Friday and he gave it 5 stars, and
I do
the
give it five
things you
stars, by the
see.
way. I do give it.
Yes,
I
so
give
do
it five
I.
stars. Yes, it gets the Mandalorian does in fact get 5 stars.
Yeah, yeah, no spoiler there, 5 stars. But which is there are campaigns where someoe's Halo just does not matter, but what a cool thing from a role playing perspective to add flavor to NPCs, or ask your characters to come up with some of this information that someone might bump into, they bump into, might get at permission level 0 or permission level 1, and then suddenly you can have an opening for NPCs to start interacting with them about various interesting things.
Yeah, I think it's really a good thing when it talks about all of those different programs. It's amazing for InfoWar. If you're an InfoWar player, if you're a person that loves the hacking game, this is something that you're going to want to try to pick up just for the 10 pages of that. And it does go into the different, between physical and um, the Maya net. It does go into the data. There's even scenarios where in this book they bring up, a physical target, and they bring up a what the net would look like and how you're going to do it, and they start talking about how, instead of using brute strength, you might do this, and how you would do this, and it's almost like we talked about with the skills. It kind of gives you an idea, if you're making players, if you're going to try to make the guy that's going to take the crowbar to open the door, or if you're going to be the person that has like some cool hacking device, and you're stealing things off of people.
Yeah, yeah, which is stuff I would have really liked in the core book. I can understand them, keeping it more simple, but man, it's great to have here. Like I can't imagine an game campaign without hacking of some kind, and so I'm absolutely going to want all this stuff. I mean, what a cool, that layer one mesh network, like you're talking about, the
Yes.
physical and digital interaction, and going through like door locks, elevators, advertising display, all that stuff. It's really cool.
No, it really is. And those mesh networks that you talked about, sorry, yeah, so those mesh networks are super cool of how they do it. Um, I think it's really neat. But so as we continue on through the book, when you get to chapter 3, it talks about Aleph characters, and you have your decisions, and really it's 2 chapters worth of character creations, because you have
Yeah,
Aleph and you have your AI characters. That's something neat in and of itself, is how do you want to make your character?
yeah, yeah. And I will say this is one area. I love this section, but there is one piece in here I don't necessarily dig. We'll hit on it harder, but it's kind of if you're not an AI, what are you? Like what is a character that is from Yujing but is loyal to Aleph really mean? Um, and I have thoughts. We'll hit on those harder when we walk through this, but man, and it radically, just using this changes the way you make a character.
Yep.
Not even counting the AI stuff, like it's got an entire sidebar where it's like, if you're Aleph, forget the regular career stuff. You roll in the Aleph's career table. Period. End of
Yes.
story. Like you're never going to be unemployed. These are your like it is. It's a very different beast.
Right, and it's kind of weird because I agree with you. When you make your Aleph character, really the deciding rule is your heritage rule. Because if you
Right?
roll that 19 or 20, then we're off to the races. Um, and that kind of takes it in a different direction. So you never know. Because if as long as you don't roll that 19 or 20, you're pretty much good to go. It's when you roll that 19 or 20 that you go, oh, okay, now we have to go over to this thing. And you're
Yep.
right. So I think that if you're going to make an Aleph character, I think you spend the life point. You just go, all right, I rolled an 18. I don't care. Let's move on.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this is of maybe all the character generation stuff across the core book and the various faction books. This is the one that I think benefits the most for some real GM player collaboration in terms of imagining
Yeah,
what's going on here. Because there is some stuff about the AI character creation that is a little weird.
it
Um,
really is.
you know and like I said, we'll hit all that in more detail, but I love like the Aleph events tables
Hmm.
of various kinds. um, and then I wanted to hit real quick because we did have a question on it, so we'll knock it out in the first episode here.
Yeah.
I'm scrolling to it, Randy.
Okay. Scroll away.
um, when you're doing your AI character, someone had been asked, I think it was Daglin on the Discord, to ask about, like, how are aspects connected, and what happens if you're not always connected. Well, if you make a AI aspect, you get an ability called head in the cloud, and normally you are not fully immersed in Aleph's processing stream, and then this is you going into it, and there are some negatives for doing that. And we'll dive into it in more detail, because there's a few things you get special for being an aspect versus a recreation versus a true AI.
Yeah.
Um, and they each have their own aspects. I'll be sure to talk a little bit about the what we did with the character. It was Clayton's character. I don't know if Clayton's listening, but hey, man, if you are, um, his he played an Aleph Deva functionary in the campaign I ran, and his experiences interfacing with Aleph as a whole. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I think it is cool. I mean, I think when you look at the career paths of it in, in chapter 3, if you look at some of the things, the tables, their adolescent tables, their job tables, their career tables, I don't know if there's a lot of horrible in here. Um, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, when
Yep.
in the main book, there's some roles that you're like, oh God, this is gonna hurt. And here, there's not a lot of that, which is kind of cool. I mean, there is the apprentice trait in the career table that you're fired. Um, that's one rule out of 20. So out of 1 out of 20 chance of horrible thing happening, and I can't really think of anything that's just god awful on there that you're just like, oh well. I mean, well, there's debt. I mean, you get debt.
Yeah, there's dead everywhere. I mean,
Yeah,
you have the you died and are resurrected thing again, which happens, and um, I like there's some really neat ones, and I think it's great of every one of these faction books that there is this table of various events for things, career event, adolescent event, etc., that are all um, themed to the faction. Um,
yeah,
to that can give your character a little more flavor, but you may also, still hit one of the generic tables from the core book.
yeah. You can, which is neat. Which is I think it's 3 rules on that, or two. It's 2 rules that you could get that might do that.
Yeah.
Which is really great. And then, so when you're talking about those rules, I think Aleph, and I could be wrong, and I haven't done a lot of rolling up, but this is where if you are playing that life point, you get 4 life points or 5 life, whatever you're gonna play with somebody, uh, you can really use them to a huge advantage when you're trying to make a Aleph character.
Yeah, like I might be more inclined with Aleph to use them than maybe anything out of the
Yeah,
other books or the core book.
yeah. So the character creation is really great. When they get to chapter 4 in this game, that is actually, I believe that's the AI of it, right? It's AI.
Yes.
It's AI. And so when you get into the AI for this, they talk about rogue AIs, but I like how they start chapter 4 because they basically go into, yeah. So let's talk about steel phalanx really quick, and they just hammer that home really really fast about what it is. You actually get another 10 pages, I think, of fluff in it. Um, it's fantastic when they really
Yeah.
hit it in the special jobs, and they're pretty much talking about making a special ops unit of Aleph, which is incredible in itself if you really think about it.
Yeah.
And it plays the same way on the tabletop as it does in the RPG because they are a small unit type of deal.
Yeah. And I love, there's a little blurb about Myrmidon Wars, the
Yeah,
animated series, and like a highlight of certain episodes. And so to what it might be like, as fluff, whenever I think, character would hit an ad or something, I would want to be talking about it next on Myrmidon Wars
yeah,
kind of stuff. And, to give you that feel. But then, like you said, there's a section later, we'll hit soon about, steel phalanx campaigns.
right.
So
When I look at this, I automatically think back to my GW days of codexes, and in the codexes there was always like really cool stories of special characters, right? And they would go into, this character. um I always think of the vampire accounts when I think of old school fantasy, like the Van Karstens, and they go into Isabella and Manfred, and they talk about it. It's awesome. In here they actually talk about Achilles, and I love the intro to Achilles because if it's the opening line for the Iliad, and it's sing, goddess of the rage of Peleus' son, Achilles, the accursed rage that brought great suffering to the Achaeans or Achaeans. I don't know, I can't pronounce anything, but
Achaeans.
Achaeans. Thank you. See, this is
That's
why.
okay. I got metanoia on me.
Yeah.
So
So I mean, like I'm literally looking at it, and I think of it, and I'm like, this is epic because they actually talk about antiquities and Achilles, and how the mind of of the Aleph knew to pick basically the greatest warrior in their mind was Achilles. So it's really great. They talk about Ajax and all these characters and how they're made and what they're doing. So great. I mean, it's so
Yeah,
great.
and hits even, not just like and it's talking about recreations at
Yep.
that point, and it's like Avicina, and it touches on Sherlock Holmes recreation
Yeah, and it,
as well. So which is all, really cool to give you a broad idea of what these recreations can be, because you can make one.
yeah, you really can. And I do dig because I am an Aleph player. I'm not really because I'm a Steel Phalanx player. Um, I was reading this and I like, again, I'm going to talk about Achilles, the blurb, um, was that they even call him a tag in human form, which
Right?
I
Yeah.
mean it's so true. And we're recording this the day that they've released all the tabletop Aleph
Right. What a
stuff.
joyous day.
What a joyous day it is for us. So we've all been talking back and forth today about how great Aleph is, and Rob's a little sad right now, and that's fine. He can be sad with his stupid hawk. Um, but it goes down into the AI characters. It talks about the life path decisions. You know, here's where you're going to make this character, right, this AI life path. And it follows the main rule book as well. So but then it kind of jumps away, if that makes sense. It kind of straddles between both.
Yeah, it's trying to write a line of finding a way to recreate and let you play some of these things from the tabletop without them being too overpowered out of the
Right.
gate.
Yeah,
Because you can play an Asura.
you really
It's
can.
a literal career, and man, if it was not reined in some fashion, you would just be too dominant, out of the starting blocks probably. Um, I love that you can use this to make a rogue AI character. You know, be a submondo character. Be what's the rogue AI Svengali? Be a splinter of that. You don't even have to be Aleph to use these things,
Yeah, the
or be
cust
Perseus kind of thing.
oh,
Where you've gone
yes.
rogue against Aleph or something.
You could definitely do that. I do like that they have the customizations, and they have an aspect customization, they have a recreation, and then they have a true AI customization. And in each one, there is a life point cost to these to doing it. It does have a gear set, the debt. It kind of almost gives you the way you're gonna play this thing
Yeah,
to begin
yeah,
with.
it's definitely going to impact the direction you take the character, which is totally appropriate.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, so so there's several ways you can take it. Um, the the AI host with the AI host table, and then there's a true AI origins table. Um, I guess it just really depends on where you want to go with this, um, which is kind of fun. And there's blurbs, on that AI characters don't begin play with a body, and they don't even need to stand one. They're omnipresent. I like the sentiment of it, but at some point it is an RPG. There is going to be an ending. You know what I mean. Like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get what you're saying, but yeah, I don't know. I do like it though. I like that they have a psychogenetic foundation table in this, which is fun. It's just very different. Making an Aleph character is very different when you use just this book.
And they totally acknowledge, you know, maybe you just want to use the regular life path. Like, who's to say that, because this whole idea of the psychogenic forge is shaping the character through these different things, to give them this background. But the more realistic the recreation or aspect that's going undercover is trying to be, maybe it's more appropriate to use that life path and have that quote unquote fake background,
Yeah,
which is nice. Like, you don't have to do this per se. They're giving you that free reign. Just take some of these pieces if you want.
right. And here's the thing that I wish they kind of would have put maybe something in the other the main rule book is the Call to Adventure table and the Dark
Yeah,
Night of the Soul table.
yeah,
I so dig this.
yep.
Um,
And
I
heroic climax, like
yes,
if I did a steel phalanx character, I would absolutely want to use these because I feel like it gives you each of the pieces you really need for that heroic Greek mythic character.
you really do want it. I think doing a straight up getting like five people together that all went, yeah, I want to do a Steel Phalanx character and trying to run that would be so
Oh, right.
awesome.
Yeah, like I figured we'd talk about it when we hit that Steel Phalanx
Yeah,
campaigns
well,
thing, but like, you know, yeah, okay, everybody, you're role playing as a character from the Iliad, or the Odyssey or something, and be heroic, be over the top.
yeah, exactly. You just go crazy with it. Um, we are going to cover making an Aleph character in the next couple of weeks, where Max or I are just going to make one up. We're going to roll the die. We're going to fill in the sheets. We're going to go through this whole thing like we did at the very beginning of the podcast and the very beginning episodes. I think it's this is the fun part for me of all the things. I could sit and make characters all day.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely.
And of course there's special gear for Aleph that you can do, and careers, and their career tables are just I mean they're fine.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if I would ever make somebody go to a random career table, but just use this one. It's so much better.
Oh yeah, yeah, and like I love the gear section. New L host types. Um, there's some new weapons and ammo that, man, I wish it was available to Aleph on the tabletop. Let me tell you, yeah, seeking smart gun ammunition and stuff. That would be awesome.
Yes.
Um, like lots of cool stuff, and then some sort of classic, uh, weapons that you see in the tabletop that you kind of want, like Flamen Spear. It's Aleph's version of a Panzerfaust. Like, gotta have it. You need to see it in the game.
What I love what I love is that every career path has special forces, right? Except for the AI,
Right?
and they have Steel Phalanx Warrior, which is basically special forces, but it's pretty badass. And then inside of the units table, you get to pick what you're going to be as the from the
Yeah,
unit
pick
from
your
the right.
kind of Steel Phalanx warrior.
Yes. Which again, and then it becomes just crazy. I think it is going to be. I think it is really cool. The Steel Phalanx units. I think that the gear is super awesome. I like that they're doing in these books gear for the specific books, the specific factions.
Yeah.
So you do have Aleph gear for your Aleph characters. And my question to you is going to be this: if I make a Nomad or Ariadna or Hawk character, can I come in here and take some of this gear?
Some of it I feel like should be available. Um, and the uh, tariff piece that frequently that, well, not frequently, but oftentimes will list like, a lower tariff for a certain faction because it's that faction's type of gear. Yeah, some stuff I would say is absolutely available. Um, it's just going to be harder to get if you're not on that planet trying to buy it. Um, Now, some of this stuff in the Aleph book, I would say probably not generally available to people. Much harder to get. But when we get to the other factions, their stuff's going to be a little more available outside of the faction, I would say.
Yeah, I would say the same thing.
Who's getting, I don't think anyone's going to be able to go buy a Mother Forge, per se. That should not be readily available. But
Yeah.
I like. Let's just talk about a piece of gear real quick here. Resurrection Cake. It's to help you recover from the dysmorphia due to being in a new L host and the difficulties of resurrection. And and this little blurb gives you a thing about how people have like a little party and you wear like a resurrection robe and all this stuff. um I, that's something that ought to feature in any, like, if a character dies and is put into a new L host, that ought to be a moment in the game for some role playing of that experience. And Resurrection Cake should feature into any of that stuff,
Yeah.
but that's totally different than a Mother Forge or a Proxy Mark V L host,
Yeah, I mean, I think that
or sorry,
you,
Proxy Mark 0 to 5 L host, because
yeah,
all of them are there.
yeah. I see. I was looking at that when you were reading that. I was literally looking at the proxy 0 to 5 L host. I think that this is one of those things between you and the GM, the player and GM, where if there's a story, a reason that you somehow got Aleph technology on your Nomad, and you can backdate it, or you could do something cool in the adolescent or the career chart, or something happening to you, the reason you got it, I think you run with it. But it's going to be difficult. This is one of those specialty factions. I feel like unless you're one of them, yeah, good luck. I mean, you're not getting it.
Yeah, like, I don't know if everybody has, anyone else is going to get access to the smart grenade launcher, smart multi pistol, smart multi sniper rifle, and the ammunition needed to make it work. Like, or the Mother Forge, which is pretty amazing. But smart taxi, yeah, sure, that should be around.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
You know,
there's definitely going to be some things that you're going to get and not get, especially with the skills. Or yeah, I'm sorry, with
yeah,
the equipment. And in the book, because we're going through this really
and we
quick.
will have to. We'll have to be sure to talk about Upgrade Idaho for your hacking device, Randy, because the first section tells you that this
Hmm.
is going to have a neat little bit of lore in it. The core component of the Order of Templar's Heresy, and used rarely by Aleph, lets you store an AI in whatever you put this upgrade in. So that's a interesting little piece that I honestly don't recall it from uh, any of the tabletop book. It's
No,
big, like, that they're playing with AI, but it's like this is the type of device upgrade that makes that possible. That's why there's an AI in this sword and whatnot.
I think you're absolutely right. I don't remember. I was looking before this episode. I was kind of quickly going through the other PDFs, and there's so many books, and you just kind of forget where things are at. And so I was looking to see what the differences were, so we didn't kind of cover the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. But I'm excited when we do the deep dive of each one of these chapters to talk about a lot of things, because not only is the gear different, but then they actually have a whole chapter on L hosts, which
Yeah,
is so much fun.
part of that is post-humans,
Yep.
and because you can play one, um, and going through how some of these things work, from a relatively high level perspective, just giving you an idea of what all these things mean and stuff. And um, another chapter. It's important for the game if someone hits these things, but what a lot of great fluff too.
Yeah, I mean the going into the L host and life after death and the cube banks and virtual servers, they go into the politics of it all. I mean, it's
And then customizing an L host, like,
yes.
you building stuff into it that is, truly above and beyond human function. Really, it's a wild chapter, man.
It is a very wild chapter, when they talk about the adding traits, and they give themselves more traits. So I think that when we look at the modifications and the adding the traits and some of the things that you can do in the game, it's it's great. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not just good. I mean, it really is. This is where when you have a bunch of experienced players and you start diving into something, you can really look at it and go, "Wow, this is really good."
yeah, and I talk about playing a Steel Phalanx group of PCs, like, you guys all get some upgrades, and it's a superhero team.
Yeah, it really is a really great superhero team, which is super fun.
Yeah, I just, I've got built-in super jump or something. That's just so awesome.
I think that they should have a build your own. modification in here, and I think you could really pull it off with Aleph, just like you're saying, where one of the things is amphibious, and what if you wanted to do something else, that makes you super jump or makes you um, float or fly, not necessarily fly, but almost like wings that come out of your, from your arms a little bit that
Yeah,
let you uh, glide. I think that would be some pretty cool things that you could do.
yeah. I mean, all that stuff would be cool, and I there's no reason you couldn't work on that stuff in the right kind of game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole modification table that is just, I mean, it's the what you can pull off in Aleph. I don't want to say that it's unfair to some of the other factions, but by God, you could really make a out of the gate super strong character, so strong from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's again where I think stuff from this book really benefits a tight game master player uh, cooperative approach to making these characters and making sure something isn't game busting or going to be running all over the other characters and making them feel useless in some way.
So, Max, I want to talk about the chapter that is in your wheelhouse. Chapter 7, Geists. How much do you love this thing?
I thought this was great. I didn't expect it. I love uh expanding on the idea of Geist, and then going into, playing a Geist and advice on that and how to approach it and things the Geist can and can't do for a party. Your Geist is probably your translator because most of the characters don't speak the same language and that kind of stuff. So, it's always kind of running in the background and things you can do with it. And then I love the Geist character path, Geist creation path. Roll up your Geist personality. You generate a quirk for it. Um, Starting disposition, how it's adapted, and then kind of this final catalyst for it, and it adds, it replaces what you normally do to make the Geist, but adds like so much more depth and flavor to it.
It really does. That path that, you know, if you're a player, if you're a GM that wants to play as their Geists, or if you want to do what you're saying, that you have a person that maybe plays all the Geists, or there's a lot of ways to do this. But the fact that you can roll up and get a bashful personality type of a Geist, hilarious.
Yeah.
Could you imagine your Geist kind of just being like, I don't know if you should do that?
Well, and then someone else is playing that. So,
Yeah.
you're kind of always in their ear, like, are you sure? Is that safe? We had, um, two of the characters in the game I ran had Mother Hen as their Geist personality type. So, they're always on them about, oh, that's being messy. You need to not do that, or that whole aspect, which was just hilarious to me.
That is
But
actually kind of fun.
it really like fleshes out and provides flavor for uh you know giving this other player, your little AI assistant, something to latch onto and start to play and develop, and then talks a little more about you can spend experience to upgrade your Geist. um and leveling that and how it's a little bit different. And then there's a little side bit on Ariadne characters typically don't have a Geist, but if you want one, that your character to have one, here's some things that to think about, and how it might affect what's presented here, in terms of the creation of the Geist. And because it's probably going to be a newer AI that hasn't spent a lifetime adapting to the character.
Yeah, I was thinking about these Geists, and what I like how they've put in here, for the role of the Geist, is that a Geist isn't the fix all for everything that you want it to do, right?
Yep.
They actually kind of Jack of all trade the Geist. They talk about booster Geist. They talk about cover Geist. And they give a blurb about what those should mean to you.
Yeah,
They give you skilled assistance. You know, the cover Geist isn't what you think it means. It's about covering your deficiencies. So if you're really good at this, it might help you with some of the, like if you're not a techie character, maybe your Geist is getting some tech in it to help as a
yeah.
skill. But it's not going
It's
to be
always there
crazy.
to do like the assist role for you or something, you know, or the Kingfish guys. It does one thing and it does it super good. Like
Right.
all I've done, all I've taught my guys to do is to drive for me. But when it drives, it actually is decent at driving. It doesn't just, handle normal traffic. Like it could do a little bit of more serious stuff kind of thing. Yeah, I really I like all this.
Yeah, I do too. I really like the Geist setup in this game. I think it's super fun. I think it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it really is. And we do ALF characters. We'll definitely have to do the Geist via this system to give a little peek into it.
Yeah, I think we do. I think we need to do some of it. Maybe we will act out the personalities. Could you imagine having an optimistic Geist and you're getting shot at and bleeding? You're bleeding the best. Oh my God, nobody's been hurt as much as you have. You're
Yeah,
great at this.
yeah, we're gonna make it. This is just a flesh wound.
Wow, way to go. Yay, team. In your ear as you're fighting. That would be
Right, right.
pretty epic. I do enjoy that. Um,
Or like some of the personality quirks. Data kleptomaniac. Oh, I stole these emails when we were over at this guy's place.
oh God, that's funny.
you know,
That's so
just
funny.
the stuff it could get into, and yeah, it's man, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean the fact that they have a personality and then you can give your Geist a quirk. And one of them I can't remember which the rule is, but it's you can flirt. Your Geist flirts with other Geists.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God, that is just hilarious. I
Yep.
mean, it's just
Or
so funny.
incorporates song lyrics into their advice, you know, or plays music according to your mood. Like, if I was playing that Geist for somebody, I would have a selection of songs to start up at any time on low volume in the background.
Yeah, no, there is. This is it's a lot of fun on this. Um, so once you get through your Geists and you adapt it, you do all this fun stuff with it. We get to move on. Actually, I think in the book, I think the eighth chapter, if I'm not mistaken, is the scenarios. Is it not? It is. It's the Steel
It's the
Phalanx
Steel
campaigns.
Phalanx campaigns, baby.
Wow, and if you talk about now, I'm going to say this, so this is going to be my negative for the episode. I don't necessarily like a lot of their campaigns. I haven't really looked at these, um, but I don't necessarily like how they're written. They're a lot of their stuff is written clunky to me, but maybe I'm not reading it enough.
Yeah, a lot of this in here is just kind of high level framework about ideas on creating Aleph missions or Steel Phalanx missions and Steel Phalanx campaigns. Um, Nothing of it is really too detailed in that when it in the nuts and bolts set area.
Yeah, I mean, there is in here a lot of the way it's written. It's more of God, it's just you're reading not as much to people. It definitely takes the GM to read a lot and then kind of tell people what they need to know from it. You can't. I don't really think you could open up some of these packs in this and go, "Let's play," and then just read off
Yeah, like I
and
would
show up.
never do the random mission generator thing. I've never been a big fan of that anyway.
Right.
Like I might use these entries to give me ideas on which to then build a full-fledged session or three, but I never want to sit down at the table and just roll something up randomly. It always feels like I'm putting less into the game than the players deserve.
Yeah, I will definitely tell you that when you get to the end of this chapter, they show Achilles' stats and he is a nemesis. And oh
Yeah.
my God, fighting Achilles would be just Whoo!
Yeah, I mean, he's as good as you would expect him to be.
Yeah,
His gear is amazing, and then he's got tons of little special rules. A lot of which are awesome.
yeah,
Just the names, Bane of Troy.
yeah.
He doesn't
Myrmidon
need a weapon
Unity.
to be a killing machine.
Yes, it actually it says it in there, doesn't it? Any weapon he does wield, however, becomes an extension of himself. He may roll up to 5 when making a close combat attack or ranged attack, but must accept a new result. I mean, are you kidding me?
Yeah, and that's just like the first three sentences of it. It's a
Yes.
little paragraph. I mean, he does it all,
Yeah, he really. I mean, he really does. What is this? Confidence
bordering
bordering
on
arrogance,
arrogance.
which is
Like,
great.
how appropriate.
It really is. I think it's great. The Myrmidon Unity generating 5 heat, or from before 5 heat. It's great. He's summoning people. It just goes to show you how strong these Steel Phalanx characters really are in this game.
Yeah, and there is a combined army book. You could have Achilles as the main adversary, kind of in a build-up
Yeah.
Paradiso campaign thing, but it's really not something that would feature in the game a lot. But imagine every so often in a larger fight in a Steel Phalanx campaign, the characters find Achilles on the battlefield, and maybe they occasionally get a benefit from Myrmidon Unity or inspirational leadership.
Yeah, I think
You know,
so. I think that that's a great way to go with it
and have that
sometimes.
touch of brush with greatness. But then, like, he would factor more in the off time thing when when they're back in what the hell is the name of the orbital they live in? I can't remember. Drawn a blank. um Encountering him in that setting also would be, it just a different version of him,
Well,
chomping at the bit, ready to get out to battle, etc. And that's where you could all play it into this. I don't want to say they're bros, but it's like this over the top, boastful, battle brother party that you have of Steel Phalanx characters would just be really cool.
it would be, but what you could use Achilles as kind of the guideline for if you're really trying to make your own characters at home, bad guys. Obviously, for our campaign, Rob and Ryan are going to be the bad guys, and they're never going to have Achilles stats. They're more likely to have like a net rod type of stat,
Yeah.
because that's what they deserve. But if you were making a bad guy at home and you wanted to make something just golly, just really hit somebody hard. Look at Achilles' profile and then just
Yeah.
copy it and go, all right, here's the bad guy after X number of things you're gonna fight, and him by himself he would be a handful for
Yes.
almost anybody. For
Oh,
I mean, group of 4 and 5.
yeah, undoubtedly. I, like, vigor 18 with an armor 5. Like, have fun with that, man.
Yeah,
It's
I mean he's I mean his resolve, morale. I mean even his firewall is a 15. I mean have
yeah,
fun, have a good time trying to hack into him and break his firewall. I mean he's going to, and the thing about Infinity that you love is now that we start talking about special, actual nemesis and your party. This is those things where, like, yeah, you might have a hacker trying, but if your plan is you're going to hack a nemesis type character and somehow stop him, you're out of your mind. It's
yeah,
just not really
yeah,
going to happen.
yeah. And he's not even like a hacking Infowar focused nemesis.
Nope.
Like, imagine someone at that level leaning towards that kind of attribute. Yeah,
But I mean, if you look down, like the Myrmidons in this book, their firewall is a 7, their vigor's a 10, their resolve's an 11. They do have some things at their disposal, but then if you go down to a when you go down to a trooper, then you see resolve a 4, vigor 5,
yeah,
armor 1. I mean, those troopers are things that you're just gonna mop the floor
yeah.
with.
And we really haven't talked about like the difference between like trooper, elite, and nemesis even. But like a trooper, yeah, is kind of the frontline chode guy. Like, your characters should beat them. You know, they are strength in numbers, or they are in a fire team with an elite, and they're basically the ablative armor. Instead of the elite guy taking a wound, it just shunts to the trooper and he dies, so the elite keeps leading the other guys.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was literally as we were talking about, I was actually down to Anna, the quality reassurance post-human in the book,
Yep.
and she's another nemesis. And Achilles is in your face combat guy. Well, the hacker version of it is, I mean, these things get nuts. I mean, these nemesis really do get bad, and uh, if you're a new GM, you really have to be careful when you throw these nemesis at people, because um, in combat or when they go off, I mean, you have to be ready for these are party wipers by themselves. It's very tough. They're very tough.
Yeah, and like the GM has full range of options the player has available to him when facing a nemesis. When you're facing a nemesis,
Yeah,
and he can convert heat into infinity points and do the same stuff the players can.
yeah,
I mean, he's they're bringing the pain, and I love, these. These are all nemesis characters that were sponsored by backers of the Kickstarter and creating the background, but giving you interesting NPCs to drop into your game. You know, um, maybe they meet Teofilo, the Aote, and interact with him at times. Like it's a great NPC to be there to help characters out too.
yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of really great nemesis in these books that if you're I'm not a super creative guy when it comes to writing, painting. I mean, I have ideas, and they don't always translate from my head to anything else very well. So I usually look at things for inspiration, blatantly copying and pasting. I mean, I won't necessarily do that, but when I want to know if my character I've made as the big baddie is too much, I'll look at some of these nemesis and go,
Yeah, compare it to
how do
like,
they do
yeah.
against this? And if my character that I make is better than Achilles or the character of that, then there's a problem. Like, unless you're
Yeah,
talking your levels of your characters are huge. I mean, just they have to be crazy good to take on Achilles.
yeah, yeah. And the other thing I like about this adversary section is it gives some very interesting adversaries that maybe aren't necessarily just something in an Aleph game. Like, there are Bureau division agents in here, or a Svengali doppelganger in here as a elite bad guy. Atex saboteurs, that could totally be, those are troopers, but you could have a whole campaign involving Atex on in Pano, and fighting them, and the things they do and stuff. um I love, I love having that stuff available.
Yeah, so do I. I think that these are the things that you really like. I really dig the nemesis in this game. I like the system that they've created for it. Um, I like this book. I really like this book as an Aleph player on the tabletop, and as a person that likes specialized characters in almost every game that I play. This is just a fantastic buy, or however you need to get your hands on this. You should do it. In my opinion, of all the books, this might be the better one.
Yeah, it's definitely at the top. I did the Pano, the Combined Army book is not in print yet. It's available for backers. Um, it rivals this with what it reveals to you, just because it goes in depth on the Combined Army. But I think of the Human Sphere factions, this is right up at the top for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. And on that note, Max, we just covered the Aleph book.
Yeah, yeah. And now to dig in deeper.
Yeah, so to what to expect in the next couple of weeks. We are going to hit the fluff. We're going to make some lists. We're going to actually talk about those Nemesis characters. I want to talk about them and read their stories to you. For those of you that don't have the book yet, and you are like me and you love the stories that come behind the character, we're going to talk about those guys so you know. So if you're big on Aleph, this is going to be your thing. If you're big on fluff, this is going to be where we start hitting that hard. God, this might be a couple episodes just on the fluff. This might be like our skills episode where we say, hey, it'll be over in an episode or two, and 3 later, we're finally done.
I could see doing 3 more episodes on this book.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Talking gear a little more in depth. We want to hit the expanded InfoWars stuff.
Yes.
Certainly. Talk about these enemies, the Nemesis characters. I know you really want to hammer on those for the listeners.
I do.
They're great.
I do. I like talking about those because for me, a role-playing game, especially a role-playing game, the tabletop, the way you get me involved in the tabletop is with the fluff of it. I am wow, that's a cool background. I want to know more about it. Now I want to play it. Now I want to do it. I feel so strongly about that, especially when you read the fluff of Aleph, when you read the fluff of the Steel Phalanx, when you look at those Nemesis characters, it gets you so jazzed to play this game. It's so cool about doing it.
Yeah, super great stuff.
So on that note, we will see you all next week.
Awesome.
See you later.
Have you visited Tabletop Game and Hobbies online web store through the Personal FlashPaper link and thought, I'd really like to buy something, but I just can't afford $100 for the free shipping and handling? Well, fear not, because on November 30th, 2020, Tabletop Game and Hobby for Cyber Monday is offering free shipping and handling for all online purchases November 30th only. So if you want to buy something, go for it. So remember, that's for Cyber Monday, 30 November 2020. Free shipping and handling to addresses in the United States of America. Just click on the link in the show notes, and the Tabletop web store awaits for your shopping pleasure.
Background music. Flying Species. The Yellow Flying Cog. The use of these human works of music is granted under the current Creative Commons license terms and agreements. From the freemusicarchive.org from the artists as listed. Thank you.